Welcome back to another Pokemon What If Wednesday, where every Wednesday morning we go through last week's investing and collecting questions, where your guys' questions will actually be featured in the video, and one person's question will help me make the thumbnail every single week. So please drop your questions down below for a chance to be in next week's video, and if I did comment to you saying great question, I might use this and I didn't, please drop that same question again, put repeat question, it'll get moved to the top. And I'm not saying I'm some guru who just knows everything, but when I'm unsure, I always like to talk it out with a few people. It always helps me make my final decision, and I have been in the hobby since it started in 1999, and I have never quit, not even in high school. And we do have to do the question of the day. I got to know what starter you guys are choosing for Gen 10. Let me know down below. And we do have to give a big thanks to our video sponsor real quick, and that is Collectr. This app is the best of the best when it comes to tracking your collection. I just added a ton more stuff finally to my Collectr. I've just been so busy. You can actually see your collection, grow and just go insane. And they got a really nice social aspect to it too, where you can actually share your collection with other people and post pictures and comment and stuff. It's honestly a blast. But yeah, they're always trying to improve by adding new cards, boxes, and features, so let us know down below if there's anything you want them to fix or add, and they also do more giveaways than anyone in this entire hobby. So make sure you follow them on all their socials. I'll have all the links in the description. And of course, if you're going to grade 2 PSA for your first time, you can click my link in the description, use the code BEARD25, and you're going to get $25 off your very first submission, which is basically a free graded card. All right, first question is from @Serial4LUY1WK. Hi Beard, do you think this crazy 151 hype will come down? Personally, I do. Think people are just panic buying as going out of print. What are your thoughts? So, yeah, cards always go up and down. It doesn't matter what card it is. It could be the best card in the world. It will eventually go up and then go down. So a lot of these cards, they might go up even a little bit higher because in my opinion, they were a little bit undervalued compared to the rest of the Scarlet and Violet era. So, there's going to be a handful of them that probably get up just a little bit more, and then they're going to completely level out. And then most of them are going to drop down in price. They're not going to come back down to where they once were probably, but they will definitely retrace and find their new spot. It's just like you said, a lot of people are going to be panic buying these right now. So that's why I'm saying a lot of these cards could still get even higher, because you got to think $154 for this Venusaur. I mean, the Venusaur from Mega Evolution is like $120. There's a ton of SIRs over $150. And even for the Zapdos, that's why I've been saying for years, the Zapdos, is one of the cheapest SIRs, and, only $137. I know that's a lot more than it was, but if you compare it to, the Reshiram from Black Bolt, which definitely a little bit tougher to pull, but there's a ton of SIRs that, in my opinion, are not better than the Zapdos. The Zapdos might be a hair easier to pull, but it's in a lot more popular set. So if you guys do need any of these cards, I think if you're patient, we will see a retrace on some of these, but remember, you have to buy these dips. I say this constantly, and it's proven time and time and again. If you buy during the dips, it's literally the safest time to buy, and you're really not going to lose a ton of money unless like Pokemon actually crashes, which I can't see it crashing anytime soon because Pokemon just keeps coming out with banger sets, and we got the 30th anniversary coming soon, and Gen 10. Now, a lot of people don't like the newer Pokemon, but I have a feeling this generation is going to be pretty sick, and I think Pokemon's going to do a lot of crazy stuff for it. And then, yeah, 151 is about to go out of rotation. We could still technically see some 151 packs here and there, random collection boxes or stuff like that. It is very possible. We've seen it many, many times. We got Hidden Fates ETBs years and years after it went out of rotation and stuff. But just know, too, if you are looking for these cards, these went up so fast. I know it's a little late now, but you still might be able to find some of these for a really good deal. A lot of card shops do not change their prices every single day or check prices constantly. So you still might be able to snag some of these for a decent deal. And I honestly think the 151 Mew Metal card at $25 in almost $1,000 UPC is crazy. I know a lot of people don't love the metal cards, but I think they're one of the nicest things we get. They just feel so premium, and the kids absolutely love them too. And even Erica's Invitation at $20 and Giovanni's Charisma, $20, that's still pretty cheap. They're normally like $14, $15, so they're really only up a little bit. So there is still some decent pickups for 151, but some of these bigger guys, you might want to wait a little bit. And some of these are actually already starting to come down in price. I mean, we can click on the Blastoise, and this got up to $227. Now last sold $175, $190, $188. So it's going to find its new spot. So a lot of these cards will definitely retrace. Next is from Kika Barroso. Aloha Beard, what are your thoughts on the, oh wow, I'm going to butcher this. I'm terrible at Japanese stuff. Tohoku and the Hiroshima Pokemon Center boxes from Japan. Prices were relatively high last year, and now things are a lot cheaper. Is this a good time to pick them up? Are they good boxes for the future? So let's check them out. If you guys do not remember, it is these boxes right here, and it's these cards. I love the card with the shiny Gyarados in it. That is definitely my favorite one for sure. That'd probably be the only one that I would actually obsess over. I just think it's sick. But honestly, a lot of Japanese stuff does do really, really good. And if you can get it a lot cheaper than what it was before, you know, it probably is a pretty solid pickup. It really depends on pop reports too. You know, if there's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50,000 of these, you know, they're not going to go up as quickly. But if they are lower pops, you know, when you actually grade them into 10, it's definitely a solid pickup. They're super cool. I do have a buddy who has a bunch of these boxes, and I think I might pick up a set eventually. I've just been kind of procrastinating. Next is from @Trizzy. Hey Beard, hope you're well. What are your thoughts on the regular Snorlax 151 ETB promo? The ETB is just hit 400, but you can still pick up the amazing promo for 17. I feel like a lot of people are sleeping, laugh out loud on this card. What do you think? Yeah, I 100% agree. I've been saying that forever. We bought a ton of those at $1 a card, and I've been saying it the last few weeks at $15 a card. It's a steal, especially when you look at the Charmander promo from Obsidian Flames, just a regular one. It's like a $50 card, $60 sealed. And there's no reason why the Snorlax should not be a $40 card. And it is going up in price very quickly right now. Last sold for the Snorlax, $32, $25, $24. But honestly, even at $24, I feel like it still has a little bit of room to grow, especially if you compare it to the Charmander. And 151 is just a way better set. People definitely do like Charmander more than Snorlax, but Snorlax is definitely up there. Next is from @DarkJord5823. How do you go about buying vintage? Do you prioritize near mint or lightly played, or do you buy the more expensive cards and heavily played? So I never try to buy anything that isn't lightly played or near mint. It just makes it so much tougher to sell in the future because there's half the vendors and half the people just automatically do not want moderately played or damaged. So if it's like a really big grail card, I mean, I'd maybe buy like a PSA 5 or a PSA 6, something like that. I'd never go below a 5. And I'm talking like big grail cards, gold stars and stuff like that. But yeah, just always try to stick to lightly plated near mint because it's going to make it so much easier to sell in the future if you ever want to go sell the cards. Next is from @SlightlyBearded. Question, how should I store the sleeve boosters I've been stacking as long-term investments? So you can bubble wrap stacks together so they're nice and neat and they're not going anywhere. But I love to buy these big sleeve booster stands. You can get them on eBay for $60 to maybe $120, kind of like what you see at the game store. And they hold the sleeve boosters super, super nice. And I've had them for years and they don't really damage the sleeve boosters or anything. So I love doing that. Plus, it's a nice display. Next is from @Nova's Move 9345. To the glorious bearded wonder, bringer of knowledge and throwback Thursdays. I was lucky enough to get a booster box of Perfect Order at MSRP, and I honestly was thinking of trading it either for a booster box of Battle Styles because I think that's very undervalued, or maybe some Sword and Shield ETBs that are undervalued like Silver Tempest, or maybe a Surging Sparks booster box. What do you think? Trade for what or hold? Thank you, Beard. So yeah, Perfect Order is definitely not going to be the best set. It's definitely one of our worst sets that we've gotten in the Scarlet and Violet and Mega Evolution era for sure. And if you do get some of those at MSRP and you got the pre-order locked in, I think that'd be perfect to trade for some other stuff, especially if it is going for a little bit more than MSRP. You know, you can trade it for, like you said, Sword and Shield ETBs that are pretty undervalued. It's pretty solid. Battle Styles is definitely going to be always a slow mover, in my opinion. You know, similar to like what Perfect Order is going to do. But yeah, totally fine to trade, you know, worse sets for a lot better sets. Next is from @SunnyBeering. Hi, Beard. I currently own a Mega Charizard X Ultra Rare from the Japanese set Wild Blaze in a PSA 10. The pop is only 500. Do you think this card is a good hold for the future, or should I sell it to invest in something else? So I do think this card is actually very special, and I do think it's going to do pretty good in the future. Of course, Japanese, it's definitely going to be a little bit slower than like what our English does, and that's why our English is already having crazy sales at like $700, $800 raw. But that might be a pretty solid hold. But if you really think about the card, it's honestly super crazy. And that's why it's doing so good for Phantasmal Flames, even though it's in such a small set. There's even a bunch of YouTubers that were saying this card will be super cheap just because the set is so small, so easy to pull. And it's literally like the second most expensive SIR. Well, maybe the third now because of the Gengar. But yeah, it's such a crazy card. Next is from @SaltMiner. In terms of graded investments, how important is a pop report to you? For example, PSA 10, Rayquaza VMAX Altar from Evolving Skies, pop 14,000 versus PSA 9, Mega Rayquaza EX from Ancient Origins, pop 1K. Both are similarly valued in the current market. So I do love low pop cards, but you also have to think why a card has a low pop. If it's not a super popular card, you know, the low pop really doesn't mean as much because it's not like it's super tough to grade. It's just not a lot of people got them graded. But every once in a while, those cards do pop off in the future. And that's where you can get your most gains, is picking up, you know, super undervalued cards where you're like, man, this card is a super low pop. It's dirt cheap. It's of a really good Pokemon. You know, maybe a gimmick that we had that we could possibly get in the future, stuff like that. You know, those are my favorite pickups because they're dirt cheap. But when we're talking about like modern cards with high pops, I'm super cheap. So I hate spending like $1,000 or $2,000 on a modern card where 25,000 other people in the world have that card, or 50,000 or whatever it is. You know, I'm never really going to do that. I'd much rather buy a ton of raw cards first and finish the raw collections. And then after, I can go in and maybe pick up a couple of my favorite cards in a PSA 10. So that's all I would do for modern, unless it is a super low pop, like I said, and I think it's undervalued. So like a lot of the Black Bolt and White Flare illustration rares in PSA 10s are dirt cheap, and they're so tough to grade. I think those are super solid pickups. But when we're talking about like the Rayquaza VMAX, 14,000 in a PSA 10 does sound like a lot, but you also have to think of how many people are in the hobby. If we have millions and millions of people in this hobby, there's going to be at least 14,000 people that want that card and can afford that card. So, you know, the high pops don't really matter until the market really cools off. And when the market really cools off, the high pop cards drop fast. I've seen it so many times. And honestly, graded cards drop the quickest just because they're so expensive and there's a lot of them out there. So that's why I do not invest in a ton of modern PSA 10 cards. If anything, I'm just buying the low pop, hard to grade cards that I think are super undervalued for modern. And then, like I said, maybe a couple of my all-time favorite cards for modern in a 10. And another thing you have to think about too is when you buy a low pop card, they're not the easiest to sell. You know, it really depends on what card it is and what grade it is. So I'm sure you could probably sell the Rayquaza VMAX from Evolving Skies in a 10 much quicker than the Mega Rayquaza from Ancient Origins in a PSA 9. You know, you also have to think about that too, just because there's so many more people trying to collect that card because it's a lot more popular. And a lot of those newer people that are in the hobby, which is 85% of our hobby, don't even know about that card. Next is from at G. Iope. Beard Man, first time asking a question. How do you navigate the tax implications of selling Pokemon cards? You mentioned you sold a PSA 10 first at Lugia, so just curious what happened there, or in other instances, thank you. So to be honest, I bet 90% of the hobby does not pay taxes. I know a lot of the people at these card shows that, you know, just do cash or Venmo friends and family, and they are not paying taxes on this stuff. But I have to pay taxes on this stuff because I'm a creator, and I'd rather be safe than sorry. But honestly, all you have to do is just keep track of what you paid for everything, and then keep track of what you sold it for, and then figure out how much profit you made, and then you just got to pay taxes on the profit. You know, a lot of people kind of overthink it, but it is pretty simple. You just got to keep track of all that, and you're good to go. Next is from a member, Jack Peterson. Why do you think PSA hasn't added a pristine rating like other companies? In your opinion, do you think this would be a good improvement or PSA collectors overall? I mean, I think it'd be pretty cool, but you got to think if they're already the top and, you know, they're destroying every other graded card company, they don't really need to make a change. You know, even though we want them to and we want them to be better and fix this and fix that, you know, when they're that big, they really don't have to, which absolutely sucks. And it's going to make a lot more people go try other grading card companies like CGC and TAG and BGS, even though PSA now owns BGS. But yeah, I kind of wish PSA would do a new overhaul, you know, maybe even get some new labels and stuff. But you got to think about all the people out there that have tens and tens of millions and millions of dollars into these PSA slabs. They don't really want newer labels. They don't want a higher rating. So yeah, I agree. I think it would be super, super cool, but I can't see PSA doing it. Hey Beard, I'm thinking about vending for the first time just to get my hands on sealed blow market. My question is, do you think having about 100 cards from $5 to $200 is enough to fill one card display and enough to start, or do I need more? Thanks. 100 cards, that's plenty. I feel like most like card displays maybe fit, I don't know, 50 cards, 60 cards, something like that. So if you could maybe fill up 2 cases spaced out and then try to get yourself like a lower end binder, you know, maybe even just buy a little binder collection on eBay, and that is plenty to start. You got to think too, a lot of times you'll buy collections at the show that you can just sit there real quick and price it out so you can even get more cards, you know, if you buy a collection right away. Next is from at Gonzo TCG. Where do you think Japanese exclusives rank in terms of long-term hold, example 10 years? At the very top. Honestly, some of those Japanese exclusives, especially the ones that are truly rare, I think they're some of the craziest and coolest cards we've ever gotten. They get some of the best collabs. I mean, they literally collabed with Mario. That is insane if you truly think about it. And they also keep doing all like the famous arts in the world, turning them into Pokemon cards. Yeah, I love it. Next is from at the Rob Chase. Hey Beard, thanks for the great content as always. I got a Prismatic God pack graded, and unfortunately they mostly came back as 8s, except the Umbreon, which got a 9. Should I craft these and hold them raw, or is there still value in having the sequential set, even if they are mostly 8s? So at 8s, I'd probably crack them. You're probably going to get more money, raw. And I'm not the biggest person who's just obsessed with sequential sets, because it's not like it's difficult to get a sequential set. You really just got to have all the cards and send them in order. But, if we're talking like vintage stuff, I could maybe see it. But even then, I really do not care about a sequential set like at all. And you never know. You could maybe even get these cards regraded and maybe they'll hit 9s and maybe a couple 10s or something. It's possible. Next is from Matt A. Yeltz Castro. Simple question. How do you feel about the online GameStop power packs? I think they suck. I hate them. I hate all the gambling stuff that Pokemon is doing now. I mean, it's not Pokemon, but with Pokemon. And same thing with like box breaks too. That's why you'll never see me do box breaks. I can make an extra probably 10, 20 grand a month from doing box breaks. And I don't want to do it because I do not want to sit and beg, my fans to buy packs from me every single day. Next is from Caleb Peterson. I want some vintage Wizards of the Coast packs for my personal collection, but my annual Pokemon budget only affords me PC ETBs and a couple bundles to rip per set release. I've considered selling my PC ETB doubles, Prismatic, Phantasmal, Ascended to cover the cost of a vintage pack or two, but I fear I may lose out on higher games from the PC ETBs in the short term. You're probably correct. Should I wait a couple years to sell my PC ETBs once they're out of print, or should I sell now just in case vintage packs increase in value and scarcity at the same rate? Also, whenever I do buy vintage packs, how can I ensure they are legit? I've been buying Modern at MSRP for years, which has almost no risk since they come from retail, PC, Walmart, Target, etc. But buying vintage from aftermarket sellers scares the heck out of me. So you just got to buy them from legit sellers. I even know a few good sellers like Boomer TCG. I mean, he's someone you can absolutely trust in the hobby. So you just got to find those legit people. There usually is one at each card show too that has like the one legit dude who, specializes in the vintage packs. And, especially if they are a big guy in the hobby, they got a reputation. They're not, really trying to rip you off. So it's much safer to buy from them instead of just like a random vendor who's just there by himself and maybe just started and just has some packs. So that's definitely much safer. But your PC ETBs, I'd probably hold on to. You got to think, we don't know how good these PC ETBs are going to do. We literally just got them. We got them in technically Sword and Shield, but the good ones with the double promo started in the Scarlet and Violet era. So we're only talking a couple years old right now. So I would definitely hold on to them. And then just maybe instead of ripping a couple booster bundles for each new set, maybe swap that with picking up a vintage pack. But yeah, I would definitely hold on to your PC ETBs that you got at $60. Next is from Aaron Musk. Beard, what are your thoughts about the Topps Pokemon collab for the 30th anniversary? Have a 2000 Topps TV Zard base Chrome and a PSA 10. Very nice. Was thinking they might pop off in price if a collab was announced. Just wanted your thoughts. Thanks. Yeah, if we do get a Topps collab, which there's like a leaked photo of one of the voice actors or actresses signing a bunch of like these top sticker things that they use for these top cards. So if we do get something like that, I think all of the Topps cards will go absolutely crazy. So definitely hold off and see what we get. And last on the list is from AJXXIVI. Do you think graded gold stars, PSA 4s to 7s are good investment long term? Yes. I'd probably try to bump that up to like a 5 to a 7. A little bit safer. 4s can be, slow sellers sometimes, especially depending on how bad the front looks. But yeah, 5 to a 7 I think is super, super solid. And honestly, I feel like that's what most people are trying to collect for those gold stars because they're very expensive if you want to, 8, 9, or 10. But 5 through 7 is perfect to either keep in a slab or even crack the slab and throw it in a binder. But you also have to remember too, gold star cards just did kind of go up in price. I mean, they're much more expensive than they were 6 months ago or even a year ago. So be careful on what you buy because even though it is, vintage gold stars, they can still come down in price if the market cools off. We've seen it 1,000 different times. But all right, that was today's Pokemon What If Wednesday, and I actually have a couple announcements. I got some crazy stuff going on. So this weekend, I'm going to be flying to Florida, I think by like Claremont in Orlando, kind of around there. So if you guys are in the area, hit me up. We might be able to meet up at a card shop and, hang out. But I'm meeting up with a celebrity to make a video. It's going to be absolutely crazy, so stay tuned for that. That'll be dropping in the next couple weeks. The weekend after that, I will be going to Durant, Oklahoma for a 2-day card show at the Choctaw Casino. It's going to be so much fun. Just imagine going to a card show, and then after that, we get to go play blackjack and stuff and hang out. It's going to be a blast. And then the weekend after that, I am going to Chicago for a card show. So very, very busy. So definitely stay tuned for all that. I'm going to be posting a ton of more vending content. And I actually started a brand new series, which I have not posted yet. It's called Scavenger Hunt Saturday, and it is where I do a buyer point of view video, and I have a list of 5 cards that I have to find. and I go around the card show trying to find them and buy them. So I'll be dropping that very soon. I'll be doing that with every single card show that I go to. So I do a vendor video and a buyer point of view video. So yeah, definitely check all that out. I would really appreciate that. Then of course, if you guys like this content and want to stay ahead of the market, please make sure you subscribe, hit that notification bell, leave a like and comment. If you guys want to support more, you guys can check out my Instagram, my TikTok, Facebook, YouTube membership, all that. You guys know what to do. You guys are the best. But all right, I want you guys to have a great day. You guys got to watch my last Market Monday. It was actually insane. Click this video right here. Otherwise, we'll see you next time.